Chapter 27, Part 2, 16th of March 2019, 10:40 a.m. That was a great sleep, but I wish I hadn't turned the television on. Death and disaster everywhere. Even a wildlife story that they normally save until the end was a sad one. A beached whale washed up in the Philippines and found to have 88 pounds of plastic inside its stomach. How sad. What on earth are we doing to this world? Even the weather's miserable. I now wish I'd just stayed asleep and not bothered to turn the telly on at all. Ancestry research is my priority today. Mr. Strong, case 2877, has asked me to look through his family tree to see if he's related to Mozart, and Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, case 2911 from Grimsby, want to know if they have any relatives in Bali. Well, I suppose you would if you lived in Grimsby. I have two timelines to print off and post for Mr. Walton, case 2871, and Mrs. Jones, case 2869, and a great-grandmother profile for Mr. Reeves. It turns out that she was part of the suffragette movement at the turn of the century. She even received a caution for striking a police officer with a cucumber, according to the papers. I'd love to have seen that one. Altogether, this work will net me just under £1,000 for less than 2 days' work. I may as well milk this cash cow until folk get bored of it and move on to the next fad. By then, I might have to look for a new career. The days of me sitting in the back of a freezing cold van on some council estate in Wigan are behind me. If I can save up a nice little nest egg before I'm 50, I'll do anything and work anywhere, as long as it's safe, easy, and stress-free. If there's nothing else to report today, Mr. Diary, I'll update you again tomorrow. 17th of March 2019, 10:15 a.m. I am up and about and ready for the day. Last night I dreamt I was walking along Southport Beach. I might just do that for real today. This time I won't bother to walk a crocodile on a lead, though. Just how does the mind work? And at what point did my subconscious decide to throw in a crocodile into what was a very normal situation? As far as I'm aware, there aren't any crocodiles in Southport, and I've no craving to own one as a pet. Neither can I explain why I met Gandhi under the pier. They say all dreams have meaning and tell you a lot about a person's character and mindset. Well, the experts would have a field day getting their heads around that dream. Last thing I remember before I woke up, the crocodile was swimming in the sea playing with a beach ball while Gandhi and I ate candy floss. I used to dream an awful lot, but that's the first one I can remember for a long time. They always seemed so vivid and real. I've had a cream tea beside the lake in Windermere with Jesus. I've been kidnapped by the mafia, chased through the town by a shark with legs, and sent to prison for refusing to wear a kilt in Scotland. I never dream about family. I don't dream of work. Just daft things. Things that couldn't possibly, or at least are very unlikely to happen. I might not dream about work, but I find I'm constantly thinking about Ernie Grimshaw when I'm awake. One thing leads to something else, and then it stops. Nothing's straightforward, nothing is obvious. It's so frustrating, but so bloody fascinating too. And then there's Mr. Green. Everything seems to come back to Mr. Green. I'll have a bite to eat and head off to Southport Beach and see if I see a crocodile, I'm coming straight back. 6:40 p.m. Well, that was invigorating, Mr. Diary, and just what I needed. The wind was strong and in my face as I walked southwards, cold, bracing, and wild. My cheeks were red and numb. It hardly came as a surprise that I was the only one on the beach. I must have walked into that icy wind for nearly 2 miles before turning around and retracing my steps with the wind at my back. Not a crocodile in sight, nor an inspirational small bald Indian. I stopped for a coffee on the way back, and my cheeks were crimson and my nose blue, but I didn't care. I felt alive. I decided to do a bit of internet research about Weymouth and Portland while in the cafe. I had visited the area many years ago on a family holiday. I must have been about 10 years old. I remember a man on the beach making sand sculptures. I remember the red clock tower and the harbour bridge. I remember it being really hot and sunny all week. We stayed in a holiday flat near Chesil Beach, the long stretch that joins the mainland with the Isle of Portland. It was a great holiday. Hopefully, if I get to go there soon, I can visit these places again. I'll make some inquiries tomorrow regarding any housing development projects in the area through the 80s and early 90s. According to Kenny, Arthur was employed as a contractor by a larger construction or building company, the one he was already in contact with in London. It was likely that the company in question was London based with ties to the East End. That shouldn't be too hard to narrow down. The chances are, depending on the size of the development in question, they would have taken on more than one local company or contractor to do the job. That might work in my favour, as any established painting and decorating firms still on the go in a small town like Weymouth will be familiar with the competition. And then there's the address. If they bought the house, it will be under Samantha's name, surely. Arthur and Mandy should be easy enough to trace too. Her Majesty's Land Registry will have historical record of who lived there and who owned the deeds. They'll also be able to tell me how old the house is and if it had any alterations, extensions, or planning applications over the years. This should also narrow down the search. I should be able to find out when they moved in and where, if they sold the house and moved on, where they moved to. If they rented rather than bought, this would complicate matters a little. The owners could be anywhere. But even if that's the case, there's always the work angle. And as Southwell, the village, is such a small one on the island, someone is bound to know the four of them. I'm feeling a lot more confident than I did this time last week in London. I had very little to go on then.